discuss might be fresh on my mind, which is great.
Excellent. That podcast, of course, available at
VinceRussoBrand.com.
That's good. Whose idea is this to have an NWA angle?
Okay. The truth, we tell the truth here, right?
I can handle the truth.
The truth is, at that time, the booking committee consisted of myself, Vince McMahon, and Jim Cornette. This was the early movement of the Attitude Era. And in those creative booking sessions, myself and Vince McMahon were going one way, which was really the start of the Attitude Era. Jim Cornette was still in his roots, still the old traditional school wrestling. So to be honest with you, there were a couple of things going through my mind at this time, and I'm shooting straight and being totally honest. Number one, I really wanted to make Jim happy. And I knew if we did an NWA angle with Jarrett and Wyndham and rock and roll, I knew Jim would be in all his glory. I knew that would make him happy. However, I had an ulterior motive, and I'm going to be completely honest. I knew it wasn't going to work. So with me, it would have killed two birds with one stone. It would have made Jim happy. It would have appeased Jim. And it was my way of showing Jim, I'm happy to try this. We can do this. But I'm telling you, it's 1998, and this is not going to work. Because in my mind, if Jim saw the crowd response with the angle and that old school style traditional wrestling, and he saw it and heard it with his own ears, then maybe he would kind of understand, more or less where I was coming from and where Vince was coming from at the time. So it was designed for a reason, and those were really the two reasons.
Well, what's the resultant discussion with Jim when it doesn't go over?
Well, Jim's, he's just the kind of guy that he would not admit to it not going over. And he would also believe in his heart of hearts, he would honestly believe that in time it would have gotten over. But, again, it's nothing against Jim. It's nothing against that style of wrestling. Let's face it. The wrestling business got to that point based on that type of wrestling. And greats like the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, Barry Windham, greats like that. But this was a different time. And, it just was not going to work in 1998.
Is this something that now Vince McMahon is willing to go along with for the same reasons you are, or is he just kind of saying, "Oh, look, you two guys work it out"? How involved is he in saying, "Okay, let's do an NWA thing"?
That's a good question. I mean, he didn't fight it. And I think he was kind of on the same wavelength I was. We wanted to show Jim the proper respect, but we really had to take him, dragging, kicking, screaming, punching, into, the year 2000. So I think Vince was looking at it the same exact way I was, where, listen, we're not going to sit here and argue with you. This style is not going to work in 1998, and we're willing to show you it's not going to work. There is no push in wrestling. There is absolutely no such thing as a push. I could tell you during this time. Maybe there's pushes today. Maybe there were pushes prior. During this time, there was no push. This was an era in time where every single week we were listening to the crowd. And by that, I mean, people forget that I was writing the Raw shows prior to being an on-air character at WCW. So one of the things, that I really used to my advantage that was so valuable to me was to actually go out in the arena and listen to the people, because they dictated what they wanted. In conjunction with that, you had your numbers. We had ratings, and there was a science to the ratings, and we literally had minute-by-minute ratings. So when Steve was in the ring, you saw what the rating was doing from 901 to 902 and 902 to 903. So a big part of our success was we let those ratings dictate the show, because those were the only real facts that we have. And when those ratings told us we want Austin, we gave them more Austin. When it told us somebody wasn't working out and maybe they would change the channel, we would slowly put the ratings dictated the show. So Austin was, without a doubt, the guy back then based on the response of the fans.
What did you think of having the three faces of Foley competing in the Royal Rumble?
Well, obviously, that was, as a writer, that was just so entertaining to me. And the beauty of that was, let's face it, how many other people in the history of wrestling would have been able to do that? So it's a situation really where it's almost like a once-in-a-lifetime situation, right, with one of, the greatest performers of all time. So, that was a gift.
What was your favorite persona of his?
I have to say probably Mick Foley, because Mick could just be anybody at any time, and he went into Cactus and Dude Love and Mankind, with the snap of a finger. But Mick himself was unique, and Mick himself was the genius that was able to pull the just the puppet strings of all these characters.